Hey guys, Joe Kulas here once again for K Tactical. So this is a very delayed, long-waited for review, and it's of the 1911 for Rock Island Armory, also known as Arms Corps and whatnot. Now, right off the back, it comes with your standard piano-style case. Nothing too special, nothing bad. It has its little emblem and whatnot right in there in the back. The back is kind of plain. It has just a little bit of height differential, so the whole thing isn't going to get scratched, or shouldn't get scratched, but obviously did get a little bit. But has your two latches and two places for locking it. Let's open it up. Now, you're going to notice right off the back this gun isn't stock anymore, and I'm going to shoot a picture of the stock standard gun. Alright, so you've seen what it looked like. Now obviously, I'm going to do a little bit of the whole review with the parts, but you're going to notice that I obviously swapped off the grips, the trigger, and the compensator. And that's all I decided to do. Now the gun itself, I'm going to get to those parts later, but the gun itself functions fine. There's a lot of iffy parts when I was like, it's a cheaper gun, really iffy on buying it. And overall it actually turned out very, very well. But there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Now, basically these guys are based in the Philippines. Philippines, I can't pronounce that right now. I'm terrible. Sorry guys, this is a morning review. It's from there. And again, it's imported, whatnot, and it's pretty standard. This gun has, and again, right off the back when I state this, Rock Island Armory has quite a few models. Again, this was the stock model, and I'm going to assume that the trigger pulls, all that stuff are going to be the same for even their more deluxe models. But even in the stock model, it has a lot of good pros and cons. Now, unfortunately, this model, and again, there's really no starting point for me in these things. Sight basis is because obviously this is the high polished nickel. The sight basis, they didn't give you more of your traditional sights. It's more of the flashiness, all around flashy. So I'm going to get this as best as I can, but your sight basis isn't necessarily the best. Especially outside with a lot more light and whatnot, it is not the most ideal. Now, besides that, again, right off the back, there are a couple disadvantages. Now, the slide and function of whatnot are all pretty good, except because this is so high polished nickel, not like you'd ever really want to grab it here to rack it, but even in the rear, it is still a little bit on the really smooth side, where simple things like racking the slide, and yes, I already checked, it's empty, there's no magazine, but racking the slide is, to some degrees, a little bit harder than it should be normally. Again, only because before and after it were very smooth. You have to grip right on it, and even right on it, it's still a little smooth. So, some right off the back disadvantages. Now, with that being said, otherwise, the smoothness of it is actually kind of a nice feeling to some degrees as well. Besides that, you do have some more weather protection, obviously, and whatnot, due to the finish. Kind of nice. And actually, since we're on the finish, let's talk about that. They kind of did it in an interesting way. And again, I'm not familiar with everything that's ever been nickel plated and chrome and whatnot. This is nickel, high polished nickel. But things like, I want to call them rivets, I don't know if they are, you can tell that the slide was done and then those were put in afterwards, as well in the slide release and in the magazine release. So, kind of a couple iffy areas on how they did their finishing, and as well, I do not know how all this is going to appear in the picture, but yeah, you can kind of see it there, right? It's right in front of my thumb. There we go, very, very clear right there. There is one finished effect on this gun as well, and part of the reason that they're so cheap. Now, they are nice guns, more or less, so do not get that confused. But finish wise, you kind of get what you pay for in some aspects, so don't get me wrong. Finish wise, not as ideal as I would have liked. But again, I think that they probably did it that way on purpose, because otherwise things like the slide release, if this was all very just smooth to the hand, I could see just kind of your fingers flying off there more than not. Assuming that's why that was done. As well, one thing I'm going to add right off the back too, the screws were that kind of matte color, so, or matte, like they weren't really high polished. That looked kind of weird, so I actually ended up getting those polished off when I got the trigger and the compensator done as well. Now let's talk about other things like the furniture that it came with. The grips. These grips are terrible. I will never ever use these because, for one, it's pretty crappy wood. I'm not going to try to make it appear better than it is. Crappy wood. So I obviously had to get something different than this right off the back. And for one, it just looked crappy. You can kind of, you know, didn't look ridiculous, I guess, but just not for me. So I had to go with grips. And obviously this is a Hitman themed 1911. So for when I looked at this gun cosmetically wise, I was like, I need to get new grips. Did that, and again, things like the trigger, the standard trigger was not bad at all. The pull was not bad, and the front little compensator bezel or whatever, I don't even think that's the correct term for it. I know it's not called compensator, but I'm sorry guys, I don't know all the technical terms and I do not feel like looking it up right now. But anyways, we all know what I'm talking about. So anyways, not that these parts are bad by any means, whoops, but I just wanted something a little bit more custom, a little bit more neater looking, and again, because I was doing this as a themed gun before I even bought it. So I ended up going with a Wilson Combat trigger, which is, I adjusted to be about 3.5 pound trigger, and I want to say these are maybe a 6 pound trigger, maybe, probably more of a 5. Not bad. Very reliable, and as well I'm going to put this out too. When I first got the gun, I shot about 150 rounds. Then, that's when I got these other parts for it, and then I shot the next about 450 through it after that. So, these parts work perfectly fine. Now, in the actual function test-wise, again the slide, it does not use the standard long stroke system. And I'm going to take it apart just so you guys can see what I mean.